to the very early years, Noeline. Tell us about your upbringing.
Sure. Okay. Well, I was born in Stanmore in the inner city, 5 miles from the GPO, as we always used to say. And it was a funny sort of suburb in those days. All the suburbs of Sydney, of course, now are very affluent. But in those days, it was a mixture because there were a whole row of wonderful Victorian villas. They were massive mansions along the railway line. But then there were also workers' cottages along the roadway. So it was a bit schizophrenic in those days. And the back lanes were our playgrounds. And we used to play French cricket and various other things. And we run around there all day till we were called in to go home. But the lanes were fascinating because there were also a starting price book makers, SP bookies, in the lanes as well, and they'd have a cockatoo, not a real one. A bloke would say, "Oh, the coppers are coming," and everybody would go underground. And there were chooks, bantams, and geese, and dogs, and all sorts of things running around, not in the lanes, but with the houses backing onto the lanes. And then we'd go through a paling in the fence, a loose paling in the fence, to visit our friends. And it was a idyllic upbringing, even though we didn't have any money. Or, you know, everyone was in the same boat except for the people who lived in the mansions along the railway. So we had a great time. We just were a gang of kids, and there were probably there were 3 kids in my family, and the kids next door who are really good friends, there were 3 in that household too. So the 6 of us were the nucleus of our gang, and we just went everywhere together. And of course that kept us safe from flag wavers and various other people who used to frequent the lanes.
Noeline, when did you get infected by the acting bug?
Well, Lex, when I was a little kid, we used to go to see shows at Grace Brothers on Broadway, which was a department store, and you could leave your kids and see the kids would see a concert. And I can remember that's the only way I knew people would be able to act on a stage, as a kid looking up at them. And I remember the first thing I ever saw was a comic dancer singer who did a sort of a very, very low class act, which had me in hysterics because he was doing sort of the Queen of Sheba sort of thing, and he had 2 saucepan lids where his breast would have been if he'd been a lady, which he'd bang together. And I thought, oh, God, that's the funniest thing I've ever seen. So that got me interested in stage work. But I didn't actually see a play before I wrote one. Isn't that weird?
Really?
Yeah, I was about 10, and we were told the thing we had to do for English was to write a play, and the best one was going to be performed by the class. Anyway, I wrote a play, and mine was judged to be the best. Now, how I knew how to write a play without ever having seen one, I don't know, but I know that I directed it, and I took the character role because I knew that the snake has all the lines. So, but that was my first love affair with the theatre that I had actually never seen. But I really fell in love with proper theatre when I went to see Midsummer Night's Dream. Shakespeare got me in, and I would have been about 12 or 13 or maybe 11, somewhere in that vicinity. And I went, oh my God, look at that. Fancy being up there, fancy doing that, fancy being these people. So me and my girlfriend, Carol Kitching, used to come back from school. So we were the school at the bottom of the road, a couple of blocks away anyway. We'd come back at lunchtime to my home, go into my bedroom and read Shakespeare. Then after school we'd do the same thing. And my little brother, who was 5 years younger than I, used to stand outside my bedroom with a locked door saying, "Magic happens in there." So he got the bug too, but didn't become an actor. He did theatre studies as a senior person after he left 45 years with AAP.
So did you audition eventually for something?
Yes. I worked in a library, the local library at Marrickville, and my boss there saw that I had some sort of talent in creative things like writing and painting and so on. And I used to go and see the Phillip Street Theatre. And then, because I started work at 15, like a lot of girls did in those days, go and see the Phillip Street Theatre and come into work the next day and do all the sketches for them. And she said, oh, look, you really should do something about this. So she really organised me into auditioning for a theatre that was local to us, the Pocket Playhouse it was called. It was called that because it only seated about 70 people. So they used to do children's shows and shows for adults at night. And I said, can I come and audition? And they said, yes, we'll give you some pages to read. You come on Monday night. And okay, so I went along on Monday night with a couple of pages to read. And then they gave me a couple of more pages. Then they gave me a couple more. And suddenly I was the leading lady in the next production, which was The Sleeping Prince. Terence Rattigan's show that he'd written for Olivia and what's her name? Anyway, that was the beginning. I went straight into, talk about going in the deep end. I had a couple of tiny moments at the New Theatre. I must remember that as well. But there was like standing around in a third bikini being blown up or something after the atomic war. I forget, but it was pretty grisly. Anyway, but that was the only thing I'd ever done before I did this thing. So, and it was in those days, Little Theatre was also reviewed by the proper theatre reviewers, and I got some pretty good reviews, I have to say. So that catapulted me in, and then I was spotted in that and asked to actually go in or audition for the Phillip Street Theatre. Wow. Which was the thrill of my life, of course, because I wanted to be on that stage. Was
it always comedy for you? I mean, you're so associated with hit comedy series for decades. Was that your preference, or...?
Not at all. Not at all. No. I would have been happy to be in a Shakespearean company for the rest of my life. That's how I saw myself. I never saw myself as being a comedian, but having discovered that I had some sort of ability to make people laugh, it's quite nice to be able to hear 1,000 people laugh all at once. It's like a big wave going over you. And there's a sort of powerful feeling to it as well. Having done straight plays as well, I think I'd rather do comedy because it's harder. Comedy, people think if you're funny, you just go up on stage and make it all up. But you know what it's like if you miss or fluff anything, but somebody moves before your tagline, the whole joke is ruined. There's so much, I think, science going into the making of comedy myself.
Phillip Street reviews were just, a must-see every time they came on, and that was kind of my introduction to going to a lot of theatre.
Yeah.
Did you love it? What was the enjoyment of the Phillip? Was it the cast, the writing, or all of it?
Well, I used to love the sketch comedy, and the fact that everybody, this is watching it as an audience member, everybody had a chance to be really funny. Everybody had their moment. And I used to think that was a glorious night out. And I never thought that I would be up there doing the same sort of material. Unfortunately, in the show that I was in, the material wasn't that great. And I have to take some responsibility for it because I wrote some sketches with Ray Taylor that were pretty bloody shocking. So At the end of What's New, I think the critics, as Barry Creighton said, not very much. But in that show, Maggie Dents was in it, Barry Creighton was in it, and I was in it, and Janet Brown was in it. Really good people who made a career out of, show business for all their lives.